So good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the June 10th, 2025 meeting of the Milton Conservation Commission. Commission members are appointed by the Select Board to implement the rules and regulations of the Wetlands Protection Act and the Milton Town bylaw governing wetlands. As a matter of formality, we are in public session, so we invite everyone to speak, make comments, ask questions, but we do ask that for recording purposes that you identify yourself. And then also as a matter of formality, we introduce ourselves. My name is John Kiernan. Let me read right across the top of my screen. Steve?
Steve Ivis. Hello, everyone. I'm the conservation agent.
Arthur?
Arthur Doyle, commission member.
You just froze, Arthur, I think.
Arthur Doyle, commission member.
Great, thanks. Philip?
Philip Driscoll, commission clerk.
Tom?
Tom Palmer, commission member.
Thanks, Tom. Wendy?
Good evening, I'm Wendy Garpo, one of the commissioners.
And thank you. And Charlie?
Charlie Bosworth, commission member.
Great, thanks. I think we're good to go. Number one on the agenda is discussion and vote of tree placement, 131 Elliott Street. And I think we had this on the agenda last month, and I think, Wendy, you were going to talk to Marina. I just left Marina. She's testifying before the Board of Health right now. But did you have any thoughts on the location of those trees? And this is pursuant to an enforcement order that was issued, I don't know, 2013, 2014. It's quite a while ago. And these trees are part of an enforcement order, so they are separate and distinct from the landscaping plan at the mixed-use development at, we used to refer to it as 0 Central Avenue, but it's right on Central Avenue and Elliott Street. Wendy, any update on that in terms of locating the trees? I think we're talking about, Philip, you'd know this if you've got the enforcement order, but I think it's what, 4 6-inch trees, and there were a number of larger trees that were going to be placed throughout Milton.
I don't know off the top of my head. I can check the enforcement order.
Okay, well, whatever the number is, it's written down, and it was a matter of some public discussion. These are trees that were designed to replace as best we could the loss of about a 300-year-old tree that was right at the corner of Elliott and Central. And it was referred to as the John Adams tree because it was around when he was around. And this is the remainder of it, again, separate and distinct from the landscape plan that went along with the development itself. So I think if you haven't had an opportunity to think about, or it's up to everybody to come up with a location in the town, whether it's the front of the library. I know that was a spot that we had discussed, I don't know, 10 years ago. And there may be some other places throughout the town, Turner's Pond, Houghton's Pond. I know Houghton's is mostly DCR land, but Pope's Pond, there may be some areas. And certainly, I would say tree lawn, I mean, the street trees that we're talking about, we're trying to figure out a way to work cooperatively with the Shade Tree Advisory Committee and the DPW, et cetera. But these are large trees, and I think they're too big for the street lawn, what I call the street lawn, adjoining a street. So we really have to put our thinking cap on and figure out where we could get these trees. Arthur, you look like you have an idea.
Mr. Chairman, would this be a topic that we might consult with the tree warden, Branch Lane, on?
Sure. Yes. And Marina Fernandez as well. And anybody else you can think of. I know that Bill Madden is very involved in the Shade Tree Advisory Committee, as are others. Hey, Ingrid, hi. Can you introduce yourself, Ingrid? You're still on mute.
Yeah, Ingrid Beatty, commission member.
Thank you. You were breaking up a little bit, Ingrid.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I had trouble getting in as well. Is that
Okay,
better?
you're loud and clear now.
Okay.
Yeah, that's fine. That's fine. So just a plan of action. Let's put our collective heads together. reach out to people that you know of. Arthur, you can talk to Branch, Wendy, if you want to talk to Marina Fernandez. Tom, you know Bill, don't you? No, it looks like my internet is unstable.
Perhaps
Bill
would it
who?
be appropriate
Looks
for,
like I'm still on.
my apology.
Go ahead, Wendy.
John, would this be something appropriate for Ingrid and I to perhaps bring up to the Milton Garden Club to see if any of those members would have suggestions for good locations?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, it's a good idea. Thanks, Wendy.
Will you do that? And then you can report back at our next meeting?
Yeah,
Or
just
maybe, go
could
ahead.
we just review again what the specs are of exactly what it is that we are looking for, the number of trees and the size of them?
I believe there are 4 6-inch trees and then a number of other trees, but I don't know the exact number. I'm reaching back at least 10 years. I think it's probably more like 12 years. So I don't have the number in,
Does
exact.
Does
But
Phil
Philip,
have-
if you could,
I can
Yeah.
look it up tomorrow and send an email.
oh, that's great. That's
That would be
great.
great, Philip. Thank you.
No problem.
All right, so it looks like we're in the data collecting mode, but Philip, will you put this on the agenda for next meeting? And
Which is
then,
May, July 8th, sure. The next
Okay.
meeting is July 8th.
okay, that'd be perfect.
And
All right,
has the
thanks.
public
But
tree
in the
been-
meantime, we can share this information if you have ideas between and among the commission members, and it's all public documents. It's available to the public.
Yeah.
So come up with your ideas, and then we'll have like a topic of discussion for next meeting. All right,
John, do
any
you
other thoughts
recall-
and members of the public can weigh in and make suggestions too?
Wendy had a question?
Thanks, Ingrid. John, do you recall if there was any specificity about the type of tree that we're going to be placing?
I don't think so, other than obviously we'd say native species.
Mhm.
But
That's
I
my
don't
recollection.
think so. Yeah,
You don't want Norways there, John.
no. Come on. As long as they're green and they have pretty leaves, they're good with me.
Now.
All right. All right. Seeing no members of the public that want to weigh in, let's move on to the next agenda. And Philip will await your specifications from the enforcement order tomorrow, whenever you can get to it.
Yeah,
All right.
no problem. I'll get it tomorrow.
Thanks. Number 2 on the agenda is modification to order of conditions at 37 Robin Street. And Bob, I think that's Bob Hannigan. I
Yes,
think you're
yes.
on.
Bob Hannigan, representing the Barris family and their request to construct a pair of pervious paver patios in the rear of their house. They're within the 5,000 square foot area that's allowed to be modified, and also to install a perimeter fence around the property, the side and rear property properties. They have a dog that they would like to let out without a leash. So
All right, Bob, can I ask you a question? Because, it sounds like pervious pavers is probably a good idea because it's pervious. But I know, I think on your plan that I've got in my hand here, it's not the plan that we approved, so you're asking for a revision. But I don't see the plantings, because the last time we were on site, we approved a plan. It was a revised planting plan. But the plants are gone from this plan. So this is a different plan than the one that we've got in our file as the approved plan. Can you put them
yeah,
together?
correct. The ones that were planted were in a little different location than what we had proposed in the previous plan. I think it was discussed perhaps on the site visit as to what varieties and such were to be planted. I started putting on the information that I was given. The landscaper had given some information to the homeowners, and when I took a look outside around the property, they slightly different from what was on what the landscaper had given prior to the installation. So, because of a limited time frame, I wasn't able to show all the plants that are actually in. But I think if anyway, that's the story. But trees are in, shrubs
Well,
are in, and
I'm not trying to, be too much of
No,
an eye dotter and T crosser, but the question that popped into my head was the last plan that we approved, which was revised from the original one.
correct.
But I can't tell if these patios are going in where the approved plan had located the trees and shrubs.
No, they're not.
Mr. Chairman, if I remember correctly, and Mr. Hannigan, maybe you can correct me. Most of the plantings were going to go, looking at the map, on the left-hand side.
Absolutely
Yes.
Property
correct.
line is,
Correct. But some of
Yes.
them were going along the back where the fence line is now.
Right.
right,
That's the area that I'm focused in. But you're right, the trees were basically right in a row, near to the property line, parallel to the brook. But I'm looking at where the patios are located, and I want to make sure you're not putting a patio over the landscape plan, or is that another
No.
revision?
No, no. If need be, I can submit a modified plan showing the trees and shrubs that are actually in. My intention prior to this was to show those, but and then perhaps request a partial certificate of compliance based on what we would have shown, pending, the future approval by the commission that they have all taken hold and are in good condition. But I didn't have time to put all the plants that are actually in on the plan. So, I mean,
All right, well,
when I get
if you could do that, because my memory is that on the last revision, we had asked you to put in I don't know if it's a Cultec chamber on the right, if you're facing the house from Robin Street. It's on the right side of the driveway.
Right.
There's a
Yes.
chamber on it, and I thought you added it, and I thought that was our approved plan. That's why I saw this is a different plan. But I don't have a problem. It seems like a fine idea. And I'm not opposed to, voting conditional upon receipt from you of a revised plan that shows both the landscaping that we approved and this, and then put that chamber back in, because this will be, when we stamp it approved, that's the plan. So I want to make sure it accurately reflects what's there. Did anybody else have any thoughts on that, or any concerns with, paver patios? Wendy?
I don't think I really have anything to add to the conversation at this point.
Yeah.
Okay.
John, pervious pavers come in different sizes and shapes and compositions. I wonder if we could get a little bit more detail.
That's to
Eugene,
you, Bob.
Eugene, could you address that, what you discussed with the?
Yeah, I mean, we're open to suggestions. Our contract, like I said, we're open to, obviously, I think we want to include a porous material. But I can't tell you the size. But if you have a particular suggestion, we can go along with it as well. But I didn't think about the particular size. I mean, I think at one point we thought about putting some 12 by 12s and the largest ones. So I don't know if that. satisfy the commission.
Yeah, I'm not sure that we do, John. I mean, there are blocks that have holes in them, that the block part is not so pervious. There are other materials. So I was just wondering if you had, or your contractor had, settled on a particular style or composition.
Not particularly. Like I said, we're open to concrete pavers or other porous materials. So, and we were just looking for guidance from you guys.
John, do you have any thoughts?
I don't. No, I wouldn't know, the 12-inch size or the different, some have hollow centers, some have, kind of polka dot pervious areas. So I don't know. Tom Palmer, do you have any thoughts on this?
Yeah, I just mentioned that we have a brick patio, and I guess you wouldn't call that pervious, but when it rains, the water goes in between the bricks
Right.
and they don't puddle. So I really, if you were to propose bricks, I would be fine with that. I think the pavers you want are the pavers that will be okay with me.
Anybody, Charlie, you may have some experience with different kinds of pavers. Do you have any thoughts or recommendations?
John, it's all a matter of personal preference. The permeability is pretty uniform across the product line. If he's using a concrete brick or a concrete 12 by 12 or 8 by 8, they'll all handle pretty much the same water infiltration because the tabs are larger on the larger block. So, I mean, a standard brick paver will probably suit them best here, and it will be plenty permeable enough to handle whatever water is going to be in that area. It's not a tremendously large patio.
All right. So it sounds like it's up to personal preference. Right? As long as it's permeable.
I would say so. Yeah.
Okay. All right.
So
Any other
let's-
thoughts or concerns? And is everybody comfortable with, voting on this currently on the basis that Bob will forward to us the revised plan that shows the landscaping to date, I guess, but
In
also what
place,
was
yes.
approved. Okay.
In place.
Yes, I am.
Okay.
And also, to that effect, Mr. Chairman, I would move the conditional approval of the plan as submitted.
All right, we'll take that as a motion. I didn't even ask if there are members of the public about it. Is there anybody who have a question or comment? Seeing and hearing none, that's Arthur's motion. Is there a second for that?
Second.
All right, thanks, Ingrid, for the second. Any discussion? Hearing none, we'll do a roll call vote. Arthur?
Yes.
Tom?
Yes.
Wendy?
Yes.
Charlie?
Yes.
Ingrid?
Yes.
And I, John Kiernan, yes as well. See, you're good to go, Mr. and Mrs. Barrows.
Thank you so much. Appreciate
Thank
it.
you for your perseverance and coming back. We appreciate it.
We appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right,
Thank
thanks
you.
all. Okay, next on the agenda is notice of intent. This is defense expansion and habitat enhancement at the Milton Take Station by Boston Gas.
Yep. Hello.
Hi,
let
good evening.
me share my screen. Oh, it says participant.
I'm sorry, can you identify yourself for the record? Because we are being recorded.
Yeah, my name is Izzy Mohammadi Hall, and I'm from TRC, speaking on behalf of Boston Gas Company for the proposed
Thank
work at Milton Take Station. I was going to share my screen, but it said that participant sharing is disabled.
I will try to enable it
Okay.
in a moment.
Okay. Sounds
Isabel.
good.
One second.
So
Let's see.
while Steve is working on that, I can give a little overview just to remind everyone what the project is about. So the work entails expanding approximately 150 feet of the existing perimeter security fence, 5 feet to the east within the 100-foot buffer zone and 25-foot no disturbance zone. The fence expansion will allow for additional utility maintenance at the take station, and will require the removal of approximately 16 trees that are located within the 100-foot buffer zone and the 25-foot no disturbance zone in order to maintain that 10-foot clearance past the expanded area. Additionally, stone will be placed within the expanded area of the take station. In addition, the NOI included information on the proposed habitat enhancement for data sensitive rare species that is being reviewed and approved by Natural Heritage. The habitat enhancement is proposed within the 100-foot buffer zone and the 25-foot no disturbance zone, and includes canopy thinning that will be conducted with mechanical chainsaws by foot, and there's no grubbing or permanent soil disturbance proposed with the canopy thinning. The fence expansion work is considered a limited project under the WPA, and Boston Gas Company has minimized impacts to the greatest extent practicable. Proposed best management practices and mitigation measures that will be utilized are outlined in National Grid's environmental guidance document called EG 303NE, which was provided in the NOI package. In addition to utilizing EG 303NE, TRC will also be providing a training to all the construction crews prior to work start to ensure compliance. And we also will be conducting weekly inspections to monitor erosion controls and just ensure that the crews are, complying with EG 303 and any permit conditions. That's pretty much my spiel. Let me share my screen now. There is a better view. Can everyone see that?
Now we can, yes.
And
we
yeah.
can.
Thank you.
Perfect. Yeah. So, so as you can see, this is the Milton take station. Then we have, I can zoom in a little bit more. We have the 5-foot expansion right here. So this red crosshatch, and then this is where the stone will be placed in the expanded area. And then we have 10 feet out past that for the tree clearing to maintain that 10-foot clearance.
Is that a fire issue?
I believe so. I think it's just so that there aren't any trees that are hanging over or get too close to the work, like to the take station.
Do you have a tree count for us?
Yes, we have about 16 trees that will be removed for the fence expansion and the extra 10-foot of clearance. And then we have this like turquoise area, which is a little bit bigger. And that's where the canopy thinning will occur. There's about like 94 trees that will be thinned as part of that work. And I have another photo that might help as well. Kind of breaks down the species and the DBH of the canopy thinning, and the count of each species.
And what's the purpose of the canopy thinning?
So that is to help with, so we're in coordination with Natural Heritage. And so the reason for that is to provide habitat enhancement for the state listed rare species that have priority habitat at the site. And so this has kind of been developed in consultation with Natural Heritage in order to, provide enhancement for that species.
You lost me on that one. Yeah, this is habitat enhancement. You're taking down trees.
Yeah, so,
you're trimming them. I know the difference.
Yeah, it's mostly to provide like to clear up the it's to make sure that there's more sunlight coming through, I'm pretty sure, and better habitat for the rare species that's there.
And what are the rare species?
I'm not sure I'm allowed to say. I think that's Natural Heritage keeps that information under wraps.
Well, there is
But-
mention of a rare turtle. I had another question related to the rare turtle. It says fence line improvements or measures needed to prevent or eliminate turtle entrance into the substation, and then points of easy access so they don't get stuck in there if they do manage to go in. What's different about the fencing, taking into consideration that particular rare species?
Sorry, do you mind repeating that?
It's item 1.3 entitled Rare Species Habitat. And John, that's maybe what you were thinking of, but they don't
Okay.
name names or or anything like that.
Okay. Here, sorry. I have too many things going on.
Well, it may not
Um,
just be turtles because
Right.
we've had a number of
not
over the
for-
last 35 years, we've had a number
There's
of projects.
there's all sorts of stuff there. Yeah.
The town had to expend $10,000 for a snake study when we were trying to put up a wind turbine there. So I know there's all kinds of concerns with some of the snake species there. In fact, we had to
Yeah.
hire a snake monitor.
Oh, that I did not know, but I knew there was concern about the vibration and
Yeah, so Oxbow has been working with Natural Heritage to, oversee any work that has been going on at the Milton Take Station throughout the years. And they were doing daily monitoring for a while and will continue to do so for this upcoming proposed work as well. And will be overseeing the habitat enhancement.
well,
All right,
bringing-
what's
bringing
your
more-
position? I'm sorry, go ahead, Ingrid.
I was just going to say, doing that work that Isabel described in terms of thinning out and allowing more light to percolate to the ground is generally a good thing.
What's your position on our performance standard? And I have to tell you that we use the performance standards both for the Wetlands Protection Act and the town bylaw. And we have a tree replacement guidance policy that we've used for many decades.
Okay.
So that's why I asked you how many trees are coming down. 16.
Yeah.
And we need to know the size of the trees because our performance standard is such that we add up the sum of the circumferences of all the trees and ask for replacement of the same number. It doesn't have to be on site, it can be anywhere.
I think that was on the previous slide, wasn't it?
Mm.
There was a little
Yeah.
box. There was a little box. Is this what
Yeah,
you're?
so
Yeah, that's the thinning
That's
though.
canopy thinning.
thinning. I think I might have the
You're talking about
I
the information, John.
I believe I can get that information for you. If that's something that you need.
All right, because at probably the last 4 or 5 of our regular meetings, tree replacement has come up and the town is really looking for a source of trees. It's an issue for DPW's budget for replacement of street trees, and we seem to be losing the battle against losing trees versus replanting trees. So we're always looking for our replacement policy. And we try to keep careful count of who owes what on the number of trees. So we would like to have, or at least I would like to have a survey that would give us, and it may be there, but when the trees are coming down, are they of a certain size that you're counting? For instance, are the 16 trees more than 3.5 inches, or what criteria are you using for counting a tree?
Let me look. I have the photo log that shows kind of which ones we're talking about. Here are some photos. So I believe it was anything. I don't think there was any specific size that was that determined if the one was chosen or not. I think everyone was pretty much chosen that was within 10 feet. This is about 6 feet out, so the fence would go a little bit before where the existing straw wattle is. And then 10 feet past that. So we do have a count, and someone did go out and identify which ones were needed to be removed. So I can get all that information for you and send it to the commission.
Would that data include the, DBH or CBH, either diameter at breast height or circumference at breast height?
Yeah, we can include all of that.
Good.
All right, that would be great.
Okay.
John, this is Steve. I have a question about the photos that were included of the areas. Some of the photos were labeled north, east, west, south. And my question is, that's not a full description of where the photo was taken. Was it taken from the center of the plots? Was it taken on the side of the plots? And which way is that a direction that it was facing? So, Isabel, if you could get that information a little bit more nailed down, that would be very helpful.
Okay.
So we can make a comparison 10 years from now, for example.
Okay. So just indicating where the photos are taken from in terms of direction.
And exactly. The
Okay.
location and direction. That's correct.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's all.
Yeah, that sounds good. I can do that.
Yeah, but would it be, Steve, my question is to you, because I'm looking at, I don't know if there's a page number here, but this is the culvert photographic log. I'm looking at photo number 3 and it says description. Photo facing northwest, showing the area of the fence expansion, straw wattle placed 6 feet from the current fence line, I'm sorry.
No, those are described properly. There are other photos in the file. Okay.
Oh, okay.
Other photos, not those photos.
Oh.
There are other photos.
I actually just turned to some of those, photo
Oh,
of
wait.
sample plot north.
Exactly.
Oh, from the wetland delineation?
Yes.
Okay. Okay.
They weren't described very well. That's all.
Okay. Yeah, I can track that down.
That would be helpful.
All right. Does anybody, again, over the years, I think we've probably all been there. And I know, Tom, this is an area that you like to walk. Isn't this the SAR cut trail?
Yeah, that's quite close at the reservation boundary. But the pipeline is also a walking path.
Right.
And
Yeah. Would anybody like to have a site walk on this one? Because we are losing a number of trees here. Anybody feel the need for it? I mean, I'm pretty familiar with it. And I know
Ingrid and
Tom-
I are also from a previous site walk that we conducted. Do you remember that one, Ingrid?
I think she probably does.
Yeah. In the worst possible temperature that you could experience up there. And no advanced warning about certain creatures that may habitate the site.
You're talking about ground dwelling hornets or wasps?
No, ones that might slither along the land
Oh, okay.
and live beneath rocks.
Okay.
both of those species are cold-blooded and dependent on sunlight to warm themselves. So that's why this is called an enhancement.
Oh, okay. So that's really interesting. Thank you, Tom. That's very interesting.
Can I ask a question about the facility itself is called a take station? What does that mean, a take station?
So I'm pretty sure it just means that it serves natural gas to the surrounding areas. I'm not sure. I know Erin's on the line. Maybe she could explain more about that.
Yeah, hi everyone. Good evening. Erin Worski Cahill from National Grid. I'm one of the environmental scientists. So this take station is really just the transfer, I think, from the transmission portion of the line getting into a distribution system. So that's really just taking from the transmission, downgrading it into a pressure that can be flowed through the distribution pipelines.
So does that mean that this is a branch point, or is it just a through piece of the system? In other words,
National Grid and Boston Gas don't handle a lot of transmission. We are mainly a distribution provider. And so what we're doing is just kind of taking it off of the transmission system itself and offloading it into a distribution system.
does that mean that at this station, there are any branches that come off the main line?
I don't know enough about this area, quite frankly, on the gas distribution side of the house. I really just have only mainly worked at this take station and only the station itself. So I apologize. I don't have that answer for you.
Tom, not that I'm aware of from previous work up there. But is this not a facility that is also used to maintain the pipeline, cleaning it, and so on down the line?
I think you're talking about the pig process, and that's happening. That happened recently on the transmission piece just outside that station fence.
Right. Okay.
Thank you. I'm just curious about it. It's a remote place, so it doesn't seem like a likely place where branches would go off.
Yeah, I don't think again, because it's just bringing in distribution. So, my general understanding of it is, this is getting into the distribution that's taking it down through the city. So,
right. Yes. I remember when it went in, John, my goodness, the 60s possibly.
Probably.
It was Tom, one direct line. Had some weaving and bobbing in it, but it was one line.
I've observed it over many years, and what I've noticed is that it keeps getting bigger. More, yeah.
That is true.
Yeah, and I was curious about that as well. Why does it need to expand in small increments? I don't get that either.
Well, there are more units serviced by it and more conversions from oil to gas over the past 25 years.
As far as the work itself goes, I think, yes, it can be called enhancement. I would just notice the first slide you put up with that, an inset of the trees, there was one left off, namely the cottonwood that you had in another list. That falling over cottonwood, I would say the work is minor enough that you might not even notice it. It's just not a very large change in general.
I'm sorry, I lost the end of that, Thomas. Not a very large what?
Change in general.
Oh, got it. Okay.
The trees here, none of them are big.
Okay. Well, I asked if anybody needed or wanted or believed that a site walk would be warranted. I don't think it is necessarily, Arthur. I think you indicated it's not. Tom, I know you're familiar with it. Does anybody else feel a need to have a site walk? I don't see anybody with their hand up, and I don't hear anything. So then, obviously it's work for a public utility. I think it does qualify as a limited project. Is everybody comfortable voting on this this evening on the basis and on the condition that we do receive the tree survey, and that one of the special conditions would be that we apply our policy guidance performance standard of replacing the total circumference of the trees taken down. Is everyone comfortable with that?
Yeah, John, this is Charlie. I'm comfortable with that.
Okay,
John, Steve, also comfortable.
all right, fair enough. All right, so is that something that, Isabel, could you provide that information for us?
Yep.
So we get, and it may be, I know I saw the slide that you had with the canopy thinning trees, but I'm not sure of the type and sizes of those to be taken down. But if you can get that information completed and submit that to Steve and to Philip, we could have a vote this evening to approve this with those conditions.
Yep. I can get that to you as soon as I can tomorrow.
All right, that makes it easy. All right, anybody have any other special conditions for approving this as a notice of intent? I don't see everybody, but I don't hear anybody either. Any thoughts, questions on other special conditions that we can see the straw wattle in the pictures there. Any other concerns? All right. Then is there a motion to issue an order of conditions based upon this notice of intent with at least a special condition? And of course, we have others, Isabel, the regular special conditions that we have that you can't store motorized equipment, particularly hydraulic, but not limited to hydraulic equipment overnight, and you can't refuel within our jurisdictional area. That would be one of the special conditions that we always insist upon. Any other special conditions, commission members? I don't see everybody. And I don't hear anybody. So with that, is there a motion to issue the order conditions with special conditions mentioned, the overnight storage and refueling, and the replacement of the tree policy based upon the total of the circumferences of the trees removed?
And don't forget about the upgraded photos, John.
Yes, and I'm upgrading the photo, the locus.
Yeah.
For the photographs.
Second, John.
All right. All right, thanks. And I guess it was my motion and Charlie seconded it. Is there any discussion? Here none, and I failed to ask if there are any abutters. Be tough to be an abutter for this one, but any members of the public that have a comment or a question? I hear nothing and I see nothing. There's no further discussion, so we'll take a vote. Charlie, how do you vote?
Yes.
Tom Palmer, how do you vote?
Yes.
Ingrid?
Aye.
Ingrid, I got you, Arthur, where are you?
Yes.
Okay, I'm doing this because I can't see you. And Tom Palmer?
Yes. You asked me already.
Okay, Wendy?
I vote yes. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And I, John Kiernan, vote yes as well. So Isabel, you're good to go. And Erin, thank you very much for your
Thank you so
courtesy.
much.
We look
Thank
forward
you.
to getting you additional information.
Yep.
All right. Take care.
Great, thanks. All right, good night. Good night all.
Good night.
Next on the agenda is Certificate of Compliance 77, the Ponset Valley Parkway. And who do we have this evening for that one?
It
It's a
might be
George
somebody
calling. What's his?
out of George's office.
Yeah, I know we got his letter and material.
Yes.
And this I remember this. I think we all remember it. It's a very, very tight space. And we made some adjustments to the line, to the wetland line, and we made some adjustments to the erosion. And I think everybody, the homeowner was there, and George, I thought it was George himself was there, but it could have been somebody from his office.
It was somebody from his office.
It was,
Yes. Peter, I think. But anyway,
all right, but George signed off on this as a PE. It says, I have inspected the above site and found it to be in substantial compliance with the approved plans. And Steve, I know you're familiar with the site, but have you seen
Yes.
this one?
I have, and I'm fine with it.
All right, good. Anybody feel a need to take a look, go there? I do not, by the way, but if anybody does, then speak up. All right, and this was the upgrade for the it was more than just the system, the septic system, wasn't it? Oh, here it is. Here are the pictures. Okay. All right. Well, I have a memory of being there, and I accept Mr. Collins' attestation of compliance. Are there any thoughts, questions?
Well, Mr.
Concern?
Chairman, I'll move, if you will, pending any comments from the public, that this is in substantial compliance with the approved plans.
All right. Is there a second for that?
Second.
All right. Thanks, Charlie. Any?
Could I ask a question?
Absolutely.
Who has looked at it to see if it's in compliance?
Steve.
I have.
Oh, okay. All right.
Yep.
I didn't know that.
Got it. Are you comfortable with that, Tom?
Yes, of course.
Okay. All right. No, I mean, there's nothing wrong with saying you want to, put your own eyes on it. That's fine.
Yeah. Yeah. I was there for the plan meeting, and it was right in the middle of the lawn that's visible from the street.
Yes.
Yes.
In part because it had wetlands or on all sides.
All sides, right?
Yes.
It's a real tight lot.
But it was a big lot too. So yeah, if Steve has looked at it, I'm good with it.
And Tom, you can drive by it and just look over and tell.
Yes.
It's doing fine. Okay.
I do go that way fairly often.
FYI. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. So there's been a motion, a second. Any further discussion? We'll take a roll call vote. Arthur?
Yes.
Wendy?
Yes.
Charlie?
Yes.
Ingrid?
Yes.
Tom?
Yes.
And I, John Kiernan, vote yes as well. So we're good to go for Mr. Collins and company. Thank you all. Next on the agenda is this is an act accelerating wetlands restoration discussion and vote. And this is the one at our last site walk. Arthur was kind enough to distribute the Audubon Society recommendations to support this legislation. Arthur, do you want to give a brief presentation?
Very quickly, since we previously discussed it, this is an act of the legislature, and I believe everybody received not only the background information from the Audubon Association, accompanied by a number of other supporting organizations, including the Massachusetts Association of Conservation Commissions, that would essentially facilitate the acceleration of the permitting process for the protection and restoration of wetlands throughout the Commonwealth. The state has lost about a third of its wetlands, both freshwater and salt marsh, and indeed it has lost 40% of its salt marsh. There are a number of different agencies that are involved at the state level, in addition to the local conservation commissions, and salt marshes don't know any municipal boundaries, if you will. For example, the area that would be worked upon for restoration and preservation in Milton is adjacent to the salt marsh that extends into the city of Quincy and into the city of Boston. And this would enable agencies such as the Department of Environmental Protection and the Coastal Zone Management to work collaboratively on accelerating a process that would otherwise probably take about 2 years of permitting before work could actually begin.
So it sounds like a good idea, right? It's nice to see that people trying to, cut down on some of the bureaucratic humps and bumps and obstacles that we encounter sometimes. But that if we can chop 2 years off of the permitting process and get these wetlands rehabilitated, I think we all benefit from that. My suggestion is we formulate a resolution in support of, this is Senate Bill 557. And it's I think it's best described in the document that was handed out by Arthur from the Audubon Association, and Mass Audubon and MACC and MSMCP and the Nature Conservancy. They've all joined in this effort. And actually, there was some talk about this at the annual convention at Holy Cross this year in early March, suggesting that this is a good direction to take in so we can streamline the permitting process. So I suggest that we have a motion to support this legislation to streamline the permitting process and to accelerate the rehabilitation of the state wetlands, both coastal and inland. And that once resolution is passed, that we forward that directly to our the two House representatives and our state senator. And just so that they're on notice publicly that the Milton Conservation Commission supports this legislation and encourages them as our representatives to tell others in the public sector that we support it, and also ask them for their support to pass this legislation.
Right. Ask them to sponsor the legislation and support the passage of it. Correct. That's you worded it perfectly, Mr. Chairman. That's the motion.
All right, that's the motion. Do you second it? Is there a second there?
I second.
Good. All right. Thanks, Wendy. Any comments from the public, the butters, the butters to the world, I guess? Commission members, comments?
I'd just like to thank Arthur for bringing this to our attention
Yep.
and keeping us informed.
Yeah, thank you. So we'll take a vote then. If there's no further discussion, Arthur, how do you vote?
Yes.
Charlie?
Yes.
Tom?
Yes.
Ingrid?
Yes.
Wendy?
Yes.
And I, John Kiernan, vote yes as well. So that's a unanimous resolution. And I can work with you tomorrow, Philip, in terms of, typing out the verbiage. So we'll have a resolution, and then we can sign it. And then we can, we'll send it to our state representatives, plural, too, and our state senator, and ask for their support, and give them our resolution to support this legislation.
Perfect.
Thanks. All right, next on the agenda is vote to accept the meeting minutes from the May 3rd, May 13th, and May 31st. I did have a couple of revisions or suggested edits, and I invite others to do that as well. On the May 13th, minutes, we have three of them. We have 3 meetings in May. So on May 13th, which was our regular meeting, it says it starts with number 9. So I'm not. It was taken out of order. So it says request for extension of permanent order of conditions, 131 Elliott Street. Steve Conley made the request, and we did actually vote to extend it. The revision that I've got is in the first sentence of the narrative. It says there was a 1-year extension provided in 2024. That's true. Then it says town meeting had made a determination that the one historical elm, the John elm, should be replaced with 5 4-inch caliber trees. That was not town meeting. That was the Milton Conservation Commission. That was us. That was somewhat controversial when it happened. One of our commission members was actually there, and our agent, Kathy Bowen, was there at the old Henry's plant, and Ken Nade, who was a commission member, was present and tried to stop them from cutting the tree down. He was unsuccessful, even though there was a Milton police officer who was with the group trying to stop the tree being cut down. So this enforcement order was issued. It went on for some period of time. We had many meetings over it. And that's why we need to get the actual order so we know exactly what the tree count is. Because I thought it was 4 6-inch trees, but this says 5 here. That says 5 4-inch caliber trees. That it's more than that. I'm sure it's more than that. So let's get that out tomorrow. But all you need to do for the revisions of the minutes is to change town meeting to Milton Conservation Commission, or just say MCC. All
Got
right.
it. Thank you, John.
Yep, and the other change for that is that my name should be taken off. I wasn't present for the May 13th meeting.
Thank
Okay.
you, Ingrid.
I had another comment on May 31st, and that's on page 2, which is number, it says 375 Granite Avenue. And on the second to last, no, the last paragraph, I think the last sentence is incorrect. A copy to the recently elected Mass DOT Director of Operations was suggested. It is true, but she wasn't elected as Mass DOT Director. That's her professional career position. She was elected as the Select Board member. That's Megan Haggerty. So she would have a direct interest because she's a chief operating officer for DOT. And the suggestion was just to keep her informed. So I wanted to make sure that she's up to date. As a matter of fact, I called Nick Milano just to make sure that she knew that we had been dealing with Henry Webster, whom I found to be articulate and responsive and appropriate. So I wanted her to know that as well. And it seems like, I'm getting off topic. It's not the revision that I'm talking about, but it seems like they're going to do the right thing and pull that extra soil out of our wetlands and draw it back so that we can mark the 25-foot non-disturbed zone.
And John, just to update you, John, Erica, Lana, and myself will be talking this Friday. I've forgotten the time, maybe 1:30.
All right.
To talk about the details of that. Okay.
All right. And it should be formalized before us with an RDA of something. We don't have to, we stretch it out with a notice of intent, but we need to have some formal documentation that this is what happened and this is the response that we took. Because I think everybody's being appropriate at this stage in fixing what's happened. So my suggestion would be a copy to the DOT Director of Operations. The recently elected is the Board of Selectmen race. It's not her position as DOT. So I think you can just drop out the recently elected and simply say a copy to a Mass DOT Director of Operations. Okay.
Sure. Thank you.
Thanks. Okay. Other than that, I don't have any revisions, and I'd suggest we'll have to do each one separately, but there should be a motion to approve, and I will make that motion myself. So the first one is the 3rd of May to approve as written those minutes. Is there a second for that?
Second.
Thank you, Arthur. Any discussion? Hearing none. Arthur, your vote?
Yes.
Wendy?
Yes.
Ingrid?
Yes.
Tom?
Yeah.
Callie?
Yes.
And I, John Kiernan, vote yes as well. Second one is May 13th, 2025, with the revision noted in the first item, which was out of order, number 9. And that was just to change town meeting to Milton Conservation Commission. Other than that, I'd make a motion to adopt these minutes as written with that revision. And I'm sorry, that's the one that Ingrid, you were not there for the 13th?
That's correct. I wasn't there for the 13th and I wasn't there for the 31st for the corresponding site walk.
All right. So if that revision as well, Steve, if you could do that.
Yes.
All right. Perfect. Thanks. And with those 2 revisions, I'd move that we accept those minutes. Is there a second to that?
I'll
I'll
second.
second that.
All right, thanks, Wendy. I saw you move first, Wendy. Any discussion? Hearing none. Arthur, your vote?
Yes.
Wendy?
Yes.
Ingrid?
Can't vote.
Oh, you're right. Tom?
Yes.
Charlie?
Yes.
And I, John Kieran, vote yes as well. And the last one is the 31st. And there are two revisions to this one that I suggest. One is we just take out the recently elected and simply say Mass DOT Director of Operations. And then we take Ingrid's name out of that one as.
I think that one didn't.
No, you're right. It's not there. Okay, so that was good to go, just with a single revision. And with that revision, I'd make a motion to adopt these minutes and approve the minutes. That's my motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Thanks. Thanks, John. All right, any discussion? Hearing none. Arthur?
Yes.
Wendy?
Yes.
Ingrid? Oh, you're right. I'm sorry. I did it again. Tom?
Yes.
Okay, Charlie?
Yes.
All right, and John Kieran vote yes as well. Thank you. That takes us to modification to the order of conditions at 5 Wagon Wheel Drive. Steve, do you want to get us up to date on this? Oh, no,
Actually,
Brad, maybe Brad, you
Brad is
want to?
here.
Yeah,
Thank you,
perfect.
Brad.
Good
Brad, can you
evening,
tell
members
us
of the commission.
what's going on?
Good to see you. Been a little
Good to
while.
see
We're working on 5 Wagon Wheel Drive. Brian Whelan is in the call as well. If you remember, this property had a planting requirement. We were able to complete the majority of the planting work in 2022, but there was a need to finish off approximately 30 saplings or 45 shrubs. And we had originally proposed it at the edge of the lawn along a limit of a stone retaining wall, a large boulder retaining wall. And unbeknownst to us, the boulders are further into the underneath the lawn than we thought during our design. So we had an issue with trying to plant in that area we originally designed. We were able to meet with Steve in late February prior to the spring season and try to kick around some ideas of what we could do to complete the planting requirements for this project. And Steve and I were able to kind of put our heads together and look at the wetland area and why not use some of the wetland area beyond what we had looked at before to supplement the wetland with some diverse native shrubs and use that area to complete the requirements. So what we've designed is we'll call it a supplemental planting plan, is to use the wetland area on the lot to try to find, which we can certainly find enough space, but to use that to supplement the property with the remaining requirement of saplings so that we can get a final report to the commission to complete our requirements and hopefully get this off the commission's naughty list at some point. So I can pull up the plan if you like, but that's the gist of what
That would be
proposing.
great if you could. I've got it in my hand, but it would be great if you could
Sure.
share for public benefit.
Sharing is not turned on. Send
Yes.
request.
I will allow it. Yes. There we
Okay.
go. Try it again.
There it is.
Yep.
Okay. So there's the proposal shaded in green. If you can see my cursor, what we were proposing before was to plant along the edge of the lawn where there's a large stone retaining wall. As I said, the boulders that are visible from the side are under the earth as well. So trying to get plantings in that area is really not something we can do. We can't get the depth. So looking at this area, we can interplant within areas that are sparse. We can use some diverse species. We're proposing a native mix of obligate to facultative wetland species, all berry producers, and I actually have proposed some Atlantic white cedars. We're proposing them at the shrub size, just smaller species, so we're not counting them as saplings towards the tree list. But what we would come up with is 45 shrubs, which would complete the requirements for planting, which is equivalent to 30 saplings per the Milton requirements. So we're hoping that that you would support this change in design of planting. The majority, I'd say, 75% of the planting has been done per the plan. It's that last amount to complete, which we're having trouble with, which is why we need to revise the proposal.
All right, Brad, everything you just said makes sense, and I understood it with one exception, and I don't know how you got from 30 saplings to 45 as being part of our performance standard. That one you lost me on. What's the
Okay,
relationship between the saplings and the shrubs?
Right, there's a table, at least the table that we were working off when we put together this proposal in 21, 22, that you talk about saplings. I think it's I don't have it handy in front of me, but there is a table that talks about saplings. One sapling is, I don't know, two or three shrubs, depending on the
It was six.
size.
It was six. It was 1 to 6. It was the math that taught me, because it's 1 to 6.
Isn't that for trees,
But I thought you were
John?
going back to your, what's that?
Isn't that for trees?
Yeah, it
One-
is. It
Yeah,
is.
that's trees.
Are you distinguishing between saplings and trees?
Yes.
I don't think we have ever made that distinction,
Okay.
at least not since 1993.
Okay.
I've never heard a distinction between a tree and a sapling.
I'd have to pull up I don't have it handy at the moment, but when we put together the original design, we worked off the number of trees that were removed and came up with the number versus shrubs, and that we're using the same ratios or same calculation that was per the the Milton regulations. I'd have to search a little bit more and get you some more detail on that. But I'm happy to do that. But and not to hold this up, if we can, whatever the number may be, if we can revise the location to this wetland area, I can get some confirmation on the number
On the
versus.
numbers.
Yes.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, I think it's a good idea. To plant in that area, the green shaded area. Any thoughts on that? Steve, you went up and looked at it. You think it's a good idea?
Yes, I do. In fact, it's got the whole range of possibilities where you could put obligates in there as well as all the way to fat wet without any problem at all. Because it's got some deeper water and then some areas that are just out of water, just out of the water, I should say. Yes. So it's a perfect spot to put in a wide range of shrubs, in my opinion.
I just have a little note on the list. If you go to the third plan, it's called silky dogwood, and the Latin is Cornus racemosa. I would say racemosa is what's known as gray dogwood.
That's
Silky
correct.
dogwood, yeah, silky dogwood is Cornus amomum. I
Yes.
think either of them would be appropriate here. I would correct that to choose one or the other instead of looking sort of in between.
I would go with the amoma, and the reason
Yeah, that is
that
very, very common locally. That's a good choice, I think.
yes, it's native, it's local, and it likes the wet. It grows in wet very well.
Yes.
I agree with you. I don't know how race mostly got snuck in there. I will change that to Momo.
Thanks.
All right, and again, if your numbers Brad, are coming off the old plan, and you're just moving those, either whether they're trees or they're shrubs or bushes. If you're just moving them to this area, that's easy. But if you're translating them, that is, you're taking a tree and you say, oh, we're not going to put the tree in, but we're going to put in shrubs. That would be a different number. So, but I don't know what the first plan says. So I don't, when you're talking about in this plan here, it says 45. That's sounds like a lot, but I don't know if you are taking 31 trees that are not being planted, which is a lot of trees. And then transferring those 31 trees to shrubs. That's the issue that would not be in conformance with our performance standard.
I will review and make sure that we're in compliance. I know we went through this during the original design, and I didn't go through the tables again in this redesign because I already had it calculated out previously. But I will confirm, and I need to correct the plan to change the typo on the silky dogwood, and I will coordinate with Mr. Wieland and get the numbers correct and get a updated plan to the commission.
Oh, that's perfect. That's perfect. And I'm okay, sort of as a conditional vote with approving this modification tonight. Unless anybody else has a problem with that, but I think we're all headed in the right direction. Have any comments or questions from commission members? Again, I can't see anybody I can see some people, but not everybody on the screen. So speak up. Then with that, why don't I'd entertain a motion to approve the modification conditioned upon, Brad's submission of the, whatever the numbers that are being moved from one area to the restoration area. Or the supplemental planting area is what it's called. So.
Back that motion, Mr. Chairman.
All right, thank you, sir. Is there a second to Martha's motion?
Second.
All right, thanks, Charlie. Any discussion? Hearing none. Charlie, how do you vote?
Yes.
Arthur?
Yes.
Tom?
Yes.
Wendy?
Yes.
Ingrid?
Yes.
And I, John Cannon, vote yes as well. So I think we're good to go.
Thank you very much.
All right, good. Thank you, Brad.
Thanks, Brad. If you have any questions,
you,
just
Steve.
give me a call.
I will, and I wanted to tell the commission Steve was a huge help in helping us work on this through. So thank you very much.
Oh, good. Good to hear.
Thanks.
Thank you, Steve.
Thank you. New business. I think I got everybody up to date, but just so that you know, the town is receiving some grant money to upgrade a major sewer pump for the MWRA pump. And I met with
Marina?
was it CDM? I think it was
No,
CDM.
it's
that was it.
Weston and Sampson.
Yeah, it was Weston and Sampson. You're right, Weston and Sampson. And DVW Marina and Greg yeah, we had a visit, and Steve and I were present. So this is on Granite Avenue as you're heading towards the expressway, right between the last house that we actually did some permitting work there, and the golf course. There's a gated area, that fenced in area there. It's a pump, it's underground, although a little bit of sticking above the ground. They're going to replace that pump. It's a $3 million project. They wanted to make sure that it was, big enough, and it's literally right next to the wetlands. So they're going to have to build kind of a retaining wall to make sure it doesn't kind of collapse into the wetlands. But it looks like it's appropriately being planned. It's something is for the benefit of, I think it's more than Milton. It's the MWRA trunk sewer line heading out to wherever it goes. But it's a pump station. So that's going in. They're looking to, I guess, complete their funding, get their plans in, the construction plans. They will have to, it's going to disturb traffic for a while because they're going to have to take down some wires because these pieces of the the new pumping station are very tall and they're getting pounded into the ground with pile drivers. So just to move the vertical pieces into place, they're gonna have to take down the power lines and then the, Comcast lines and electric lines and whatnot there. So it will disturb, and I forget, Steve, you might remember what the construction plan is, but they're gonna be there a few months, I believe. So that's, down the road. I asked them to make sure that they have the capacity for the pump. If in fact there's a development, and there's been a lot of talk in the town about the MBTA Communities Act and that area where the DOT land is, the park and ride, where the American Legion Hall is, that we had a pretty high designation of units there for density. And it was, I don't know, 764, I think is the number. So I just said, if you're planning for the future, make sure your pump capacity can take another branch line coming in here, because that could happen. So they said, yep, we're gonna add that to the planning phase. So we're still a ways away, and nobody's suggesting that this is going to happen with all those units in that area. But it's a potential that for planning purposes, they have to be aware of. And in addition to that, and very importantly, they were made aware of, but they were already aware of. The CDM and EPA and DEP, everybody's predicting an increase in flooding in that area. And there are projections for 2030, 2050, and 2070. And you won't believe this, but if you know where Hope Ave is, the flooding is going to go up to Hope Avenue from the change in tide. That's what the predictions are. Hope Avenue. That's, if you're standing, that's the low point on Granite Avenue where the pump station is. And I don't know what the difference in elevation is, but Hope Ave is a whole lot higher than that. So we've got some flooding coming. And I just wanted to make sure that they were planning for it, and they are. They are. And this is the same land that, Arthur's concerned with at Riverside Drive. That same rise in tide is going to affect Riverside and possibly Thistle and Cortlandt Circle. So anyway, that's on the planning side. What else? This evening, I was on I started with the Board of Health because about a month ago, Marina Fernandez and the DPW folks and the sewer and water people and the DCR folks, we all met at the Unquity Dam. And there's about a 60 or 70 foot or maybe 80 foot beaver dam there. And I did take some pictures. They were very poor quality pictures, Tom. You'd be embarrassed. I'd even call them pictures. But the water level is very high and very close to the road. And at this evening's Board of Health meeting, Marina showed videotapes of Harlan Street underwater. That was just within the last couple of weeks. And the difficulty is that when we had our meeting a month ago on site, I had suggested that Marina contact the people at Beaver Solutions and Beaver Institute. There were two fellows that gave a workshop at the MACC convention at Holy Cross in early March. And it was the topic of, what do you do with beavers? Do you have to file if you want to take a beaver dam down, do you have to, file a permit, either a notice of intent or an RDA with your local conservation commission? And DEP's guidance is, yes, you do. But the trapping of the beavers is within the province of the health department, not the conservation commission. So a year ago, DCR filed an application for a permit to trap the beavers actually on the other side of Unquity, closer to the skating rink. And the Board of Health declined. They said, try to fix it. Try to take the beaver dam out of there and release the water and just, keep doing it, see if that works. So they did, but the problem, it actually, Roy Chambers tonight testified that it seemed to have worked there. But all the beaver activity is on the other side of Unquity, where the Holland Street, the dam is. It's on the backside of that. And that water is about a foot below Holland Street when we were there. It's very high and it is washing out. And DPW said, look, this is a public safety issue. That road is going to wash away if we don't get the water level down. So the DPW for the town is now filed tonight. She filed it on the 5th, but she spoke tonight, asking them to issue the permit. And so that with complete transparency, you cannot trap and release a beaver in Massachusetts. You have to trap and euthanize the beaver. And that's clear, cards on the table, they're going to kill the beavers. And the issue then becomes, what about the first cousin and the second cousin? Is there another beaver that's going to come and replace them? I don't know. But that issue is this evening before the Board of Health. I don't know what the vote was. I don't know what they did, but we'll find out tomorrow morning. And then if they do trap the beavers, then the DPW will come before us and ask for a permission to take the beaver dam down to release the waters. All right, just background, there's nothing we have to do. I just want you to know what's going on.
John, quick question. Who did the DPW request the permit from?
The Board of Health.
Okay, and does this Board of Health, I assume, has to go to the state?
No.
No?
No, they issue the permit. All the state does is they define the beaver trapping season,
That's
which
it.
I learned tonight is
Who knew?
January to there are two beaver trapping seasons. The first one was January 1st to April 15th of 2025. The second one is November 1st to April 15th of 2026. So you can't trap them between April and November. So that's the state permit, but that's the state requirement. And the other requirement by the state is that you must euthanize the beaver. I have no idea why.
It's a shame.
And I know that a year ago, the Board of Health, was not happy with that. And I can't read into why they voted, but they denied the permit. Oh, there it is. There's a picture right there. Right. It's a big one. It's a big dam.
Oh, yeah, it's massive.
Yeah.
Wow.
If I can share my screen, I'll show you the dam we're talking about.
Yep.
Yeah, it's up on the screen now, Tom.
Yeah.
Is
it?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Now, imagine trying to get equipment in there to remove that dam because it goes all the way to Harlan Street and it's all wet. It's not going to be easy to get in there.
Right.
Oh, and I should go back and explain something that when we met a month ago, the idea at that point, and DCR was there with us, and I suggested go back to the fellows that gave the presentation, because the fellow that owns the Beaver Solutions was suggesting that we use a beaver deceiver, which is essentially a fence around the dam. That's not true. It's a fence around the opening of the culvert that handles the water, essentially to keep the dam back away from the opening of the culvert. And then you put in a big siphon pipe. And when I say big, it could be 12-inch, 24-inch plastic tubing that goes up and over the dam. You don't want to send all the water because the beavers apparently need to hear the water moving and feel the water moving. But the idea is the beaver deceiver allows most of the water to go up and over the dam and continue downstream. But the beavers are still blocking enough water that they're happy and they can build their lodge and still go underwater to get in and out of their lodge. So we tried the beaver deceiver, and I talked to Marina both last week and yesterday about this, and all of the experts said with a dam of this size, and I'm talking about the sort of the lateral distance, it's 60, 70, 80 feet long, that it won't work. So Marina did, that was her first stop. But the experts convinced her that it won't work. So it's an interesting dilemma because, nobody wants to kill the beavers, but it is a public safety issue, and it will wash the road. You have to see what she showed the Board of Health this evening. It was a video, and I think it was only 2 weeks ago. Harlan Street is completely underwater.
Wow. Wow.
So that's just an update for you. That's all I have for new business. Anybody else?
I have a question, John, about what the plant is behind Tom Palmer. Is a giant hogweed?
Yeah, that's an introduced understory tree called European mountain ash, and it's
okay,
in the
sure.
maple swamp that's off the access road at the Norwood Airport. And I don't often see it. There was one at Pope's Pond years ago. One of the few trees with pinnate compound leaves.
Yep.
Yeah, about the beavers, I understand the DPW's desire to keep the water off Harlan Street. On the other hand, I wouldn't want us to get into a routine where we have to periodically trap and kill the beavers and move in there. I was discussing this with Kevin Keating, who has another dam next to, it's actually closer to Stephen Wells's house behind the gas station. It's not far from the Canton Avenue Bridge on Pine Tree Brook. There's a new dam there as well.
Yeah, that was the one a year ago, Tom. That was the DCR permit from a year ago.
Well, it's back at any rate. And Kevin was saying it's very hard to get anything done on this issue. And I said to him, yeah, we're all flopping around while the beavers are very busy. And I think the beavers have come to stay. And we really don't have a solution at this point for dealing with them. I would note that on that Harlan Street closure, they put up the cones on Unquity Road and presumably up at the other end as well on the first day. But by the end of the day, the first car from Harlan Street had driven through because the flow over Harlan Street was not deep. And the cones stayed up for another 4 days, even though the people in the know in the neighborhood were driving back and forth because the water was very shallow. It's a place where it often overflows, doesn't take much of a storm. And what the beavers have done is they have changed that flow regime. So now it's going to flood a little more frequently on somewhat smaller storms. And is that livable for that neighborhood? Is that a threat to the infrastructure under Harlan Street? That's the sort of questions we're going to have to deal with down the road, I think. But from a practical point of view, I think it would be easier to try to accommodate life with beavers than to kill everyone that makes trouble.
Tom, I think a lot of people agree with you, but DPW, Marina just said, what are we supposed to do? The road is washing away. We're watching it wash away.
It's true. They've repaired it year after year. If you look at the downslope side of Harlan, where it flows over, there's a lot of patch jobs up and down there, and it must be a real headache because as the water goes off the lower side, it does pluck away at whatever builds up the road. And the asphalt itself decays or becomes broken up, and it is a perennial headache there. Is there something could be done about the road material to make it less subject to erosion? Could there be a job on the road that allows the water to flow under it more easily or over it more easily? I'm just saying that there might be other ways to look at it. Yeah, beavers made Massachusetts. The first boat back to England was full of beaver skins in 1621. And within like 10 years, all the beavers had been trapped. So that's 400 years we've not had to deal with beavers. And now that interim is over, now that big gap in beavers is over, and we have to learn how to live with them. And we don't have any experience, but the rest of the state does. And I hope there can be some kind of coexistence that works for Milton.
Well, I agree, but look, when I say we, I don't have any special, I have no expertise in this area, but that was the point that was made at the workshop at the MACC convention at Holy Cross. Everybody was kind of putting their arms up and saying, what do we do? We want to live with them, and we want to coexist with them peacefully and happily. And although many people think, conservation commissions regulate wildlife, we don't. We regulate wildlife habitat, which is really interesting. And I think that's the reason why the trap permit goes to the Board of Health, because excess water is seen as a health hazard. We regulate the wildlife habitat. So if they want to take the dam down, they have to come to us to ask permission. But if they want to trap them, they don't ask us. They go to the health department.
That dam could be removed with heavy equipment, but it would have to work entirely in wetlands almost. And what happens when the excavator goes away and 2 weeks later the next beaver builds another dam? Because it could mean that we spent a lot of money and we didn't get any kind of solution.
And that was the hearing testimony on the first Board of Health hearing that I went to, probably, I say a year ago. It was more than that. I think it was very late 23. So maybe a year and a half ago. And that was exactly the DCR testimony, because DCR was looking for the permit. And they said, look, we can take it out, but they're going to rebuild it. They said a couple of days instead of a couple of weeks. They said they're very, very efficient workers, and they go right back to work. As soon as we leave, they're back at work. That it's like a cycle. And that's the problem.
So isn't the answer redesign of that portion of road?
What's that?
Isn't the answer then some sort of redesign of that portion of road? I mean, it's not going to be inexpensive. It's probably going to be very expensive.
Very.
I agree that might be a fruitful way to go. I think the neighbors, the people who live on Harlan Street, they like having a street, believe it or not, that is sometimes flooded. In other words, they don't like being a cut-through area. They would like a solution that reduces traffic rather than increases it. I'm just throwing out ideas here. I have no clue what to do about this.
Right. Well, keep thinking about it, everybody.
Mr. Chairman, if I can add, without consideration of the beavers, that area has been increasingly flooded. And with increasing stormwater through climate change, we're going to have to address that road anyhow. So going back to Ingrid's point, at some point in time, the town is probably going to have to raise the level of Harlan Street. in the area that Tom described earlier, from the intersection right up through to where the elevation increases going up the hillside.
Yep.
A big job, very expensive job. But even without the beavers, that's ultimately going to have to be done. It's an area of critical environmental concern. We have tons of sheet water, storm water coming in. We're going to have more of it. And we're just not going to escape flooding down there. And I don't know who would be addressing it from that perspective, let alone from the perspective of the beavers. If you address the first point, I think there's some solution to the second point that leads to coexistence, along with ways in which communities can manage beaver habitats, like was being discussed at the conference session that you attended. The real issue is elevation of the road, regardless of the beavers.
In
Right, well,
some parts
we
of the
were out
world,
there.
well, they do. If you've seen a lot of wildlife stuff from Australia, you'll notice they have a wet and dry season in parts of the country, and they build roads to be flooded periodically and not damaged. I don't know if you've seen this. A road will go across a gully. The road bed is reinforced. It looks like concrete. And for most of the year, you can drive across it. But part of the year, the water goes through. You know, that's a solution that applies to a different climate entirely. But if you were to raise Harlan Street in the area that crosses a lowland, that is a lot of raising to do. That's probably a quarter mile of road. Yeah, that seems like a very expensive way to do it. It would work, namely a causeway, but I would wonder if there might be a cheaper way to do it by having places where that would normally get flooded, just routinely, and yet the road would not be damaged. Just thinking out loud.
Yeah, that happens also in the American West.
Yeah.
I not to prolong the evening, but there is the possibility of where the water crosses Harlan Street now from let's say the Wollaston Golf Course side of Harlan to the concrete dam side. The Beaver Dam is between the outfall of the crossing and then the concrete dam.
Yes.
You could potentially run a new outfall line that connects directly from the Wollaston side of Harlan Street directly to the concrete dam. And it would bypass any dams that the beavers build in what I would call the Unquity side of Harlan Street. And that would at least drain that, the northeast side of Harlan on a continual basis. The challenge would be, we know we have beavers further down the line, down towards Canton Ave and the other end of Harlan Street and down towards Pope's Pond. But the water elevation between the outfall and the actual concrete dam is upwards of 2 feet.
Oh, yes.
That the beavers are backing up the water. If you could bypass the beaver dam, then they would maintain the water on the Unquity side of the road, and the other side, the Wollaston side of the road, would directly outfall into the concrete dam. You would at least alleviate a large portion of the flooding coming across Harlan Street, because when you think of the road structurally, the water level has been so high for so long because of the beavers that all of the soil under the asphalt is saturated. And I agree with Marina's assessment that it's deteriorating the road. And that road was built, over the course of the past 200 years, between knocking trees down and slapping mud between the stumps and throwing the fallen trees on the road and covering it with gravel to what we have now. So the structural integrity of the subsurface under the asphalt and under that roadway is already not of best construction practices. And if you could bypass and drain that Wollaston side, you may alleviate, and most likely alleviate, a lot of the potential damage, and you may be able to leave the beavers alone.
Charlie's
Are you
absolutely
talking
right.
about a buried pipe? Like a
Yes,
U-shaped
Tom.
pipe? Yeah.
Yes, Tom.
Charlie's right. Tom, you and I talked about Teal's history of Milton not too long ago. I think it was on the sidewalk, and there is in that book mention of the construction of Holland Street. And when one reads it, although it's relatively brief, one comes away with the thought that it was never done correctly in the first place.
I agree with Charlie that it is a very crude embankment. That's what it is, an embankment, which by itself is a dam. And the culverts in the past have been just big enough, not to prevent flooding, but to prevent the road from washing away. But it is washing away, particularly at that crossing point. It's been patched over and over. Does anybody know what utilities are under that road?
I don't believe there's any.
Huh.
We have there's some drainage down by the dam side, the concrete dam, but where that crossing is, where the concrete culvert's in the ground that went in a few years ago, there's no utilities running up Harlan Street.
Well, I wonder if
Well,
there's going to be a project eligible for state grants once Milton's again eligible for state grants.
I remember talking about the problem bridge further down on Old Harlan Street, down toward the rink, that culvert that they stuffed last winter. And one reason we couldn't discuss taking out the unused portion of Harlan Street there was because of the issue that it did have utilities under the road. And could anybody consider removing Upper Harlan Street? If there's no road, there's nothing to flood. I don't know. That's pretty radical to suppose we should just remove that road. But the road is the dam that floods.
And historically, it hasn't been a problem.
Yeah.
You know, it's certainly in the very recent years with the the relocation of our neighbors coming in up here that the beavers have made a home that we hadn't seen for as long as I lived up here. But I think even a solution like rerouting the outfall water to the concrete dam, it may only be a matter of time before the beavers decide to start building dams on the northeast side of Harlan Street, not just on the Youngwoody side.
Yes, there's a lot of room there. And in the landscape scale view of what beavers do, over the long term, over a landscape, they use an area, create a pond, and then eat up all the food. Then they abandon the area, the dam breaks down, the trees come back, and in another 40 years, it's ready for the beavers again. So that has been the cycle and has actually added to habitat diversity in New England because of this constant flooding and draining of areas along streams. And that's what they do if nobody interrupts them. And can Milton adapt to that kind of beaver activity? That's the question, I guess. It quickly becomes a question of particular lots and particular flooding problems. And I think as we see property damage emerge from this beaver activity, that's when the pressure will increase to remove beavers. And, you know, that's pretty sad to think we have to wait for the damage to do anything, but it's hard for us to predict right now where that damage will happen.
Well, Charlie, you know, what you said about, redirecting the water with an underground pipe, the principle is the same as the beaver deceiver, but there's something about, the sound of when the beavers can hear the water still trickling. I guess going up and over the dam with a siphon pipe, the experts said wouldn't work. But your idea is to go underground and just have a direct, like an extended culvert right to the dam. And that I think is worthwhile you talking to Marina about that. Because I know it would be very costly, but I also know that I talked to Chase, again, this goes back a year or so ago when Chase Berkeley was still here. We were up there. I think the whole Conservation Commission was up there because the road was degrading. And they had an RDA, the DPW had an RDA, maybe it's 2 years ago. And we went up to look at the embankment and it was really deteriorating. And I asked Chase Berkeley, what would it cost to just kind of put like raise the elevation of the road, but like a big hump in the road to go over that area? And he basically said a fortune.
Wow.
To raise the road, it would it'd go over that culvert that needed some repair work. He said that's a fortune. And I can, the taxpayers are saying, wait a minute, let's prioritize our expenses. We've got new schools coming. We've got all kinds of issues in the town. And I'm not sure anybody wants to put a couple of $1 million into rehabbing that section of Harlan Street. It is just, by the way, Tom, you said this, that there are probably dams up there already. When we met a month ago with the DPW, and DCR was there. Two of the people said that there were dams, beaver dams, on that northeast side that you were mentioning, and it wasn't Marina, but it was Greg, and I can't remember Greg's last name. Arthur, you might know him from DPW. He
McAtee.
said,
Greg
who is it?
McAtee. Greg McAtee.
Yes, right. So he said that he had got a couple of complaints from Wollaston because their pond levels are going up because the water's backing up all the way to their pond. Russell Pond is the big one when you first come in off of Randolph Avenue. But there are a series of ponds that go in the direction of that Harlan Street dam. And no, the townsfolk aren't going to be really sympathetic to Wollaston, folks complaining about the level of their water. But it points out the fact that the beavers may be actually moving in that direction. There may be dams towards the Wollaston golf course side of that concrete dam. Two of the guys there said that there were.
There are several dams in there.
Yeah.
If you've ever canoed the Ipswich River, you might know that in the huge marsh in the towns of Hamilton and Topsfield has at least a dozen beaver lodges across it. But there are no dams because there's not enough gradient to hold back any water. And I think that's how beavers operate. They will only build a dam where it effectively floods an area where they can build a lodge and bring in the sticks that they eat. So if you are savvy about beavers and you look at a watershed map of Milton, you can predict where they will build dams and where they won't. And the only way I would guess to discourage them from using those places is to remove any food that they can collect by flooding those places. And that would mean cutting all the woody vegetation, which is not really an option. So, yeah, this is a dilemma that is going to be difficult, and I hope we can be smart about it.
Tom, on your point, I've actually seen them swim wood from a distant location to where they wanted to have a lodge, even though
It's
it was
easy, yeah.
approximate to where the lodge was built. So
Wow.
they're hard workers.
Wow.
And that wood is what they eat all winter, because they make these piles of sticks underwater, and then they can get to them without coming above the ice and exposing themselves. So that's their winter larder. They build up that way. And when they run out of sticks, when there are no more little trees to cut down and eat, that's when they abandon a place. But that takes a long time.
The only way the town controlled them at the location where I was siting was by increasing the flow of water, changing the flapper gate in such a way that more water flowed out of that area in such a way that it was not habitable for the beavers to live under the dam.
Huh. That sounds good. That sounds like a way to discourage them, maybe.
It did. They haven't been there for 20 years now.
Where is that, Arthur?
It's in Sandwich,
Ah, okay.
East Sandwich.
All right. Well, it's food for thought, and this is an active issue, and it's going to be before us, I think, shortly. So keep thinking, keep talking, and Charlie, you may want to talk to Marina and just, talk about what would because I think an underground pipe would be cheaper than raising the road.
For sure. I'll stop by your office and see her.
Thanks. All right. Thank you. All right. Do we have anything else on the new business side of things?
I just had one question for Steve. I had a notation about 21 Low Circle. Are we finished with that location? I just
That's
had
coming next month.
next
I
month.
don't-
Okay,
Yeah,
good. So
they,
I'll keep that paperwork.
they were coming today, but the man is out of town on business.
Okay, thanks very much,
He's
Phil.
coming in August.
All right. I think we're good. We ready for a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Thanks, Tom. Second?
Second.
All right. Thanks, Charlie. Discussion, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All right. We're good to go. Thanks, everybody.
Good night. Thanks,
All
guys.
right.
Good night,
all.
Night,
everyone.
everyone.
Bye.
Thank you.